The message that shattered everything. Amelia Hart's phone buzzed at exactly 11:47 p.m., the same moment she was about to turn off her bedside lamp. She had spent the evening wrapped in silk sheets, her heart full of dreams about tomorrow, her wedding day. In less than 12 hours, she would walk down the aisle of St. Catherine's Cathedral, wearing the custom Vera Wang gown that had taken 6 months to perfect. The dress hung on a mannequin in the corner of her room, its delicate lace and pearl beading catching the soft lamplight like captured moonbeams. Her fiancé, Daniel Blackwood, heir to the Blackwood Industries fortune, would be waiting at the altar with that devastating smile that had captured her heart 3 years ago. She could still remember the first time they met, at a charity auction where he had bid an outrageous amount on a painting, just to get her attention. "I don't even like abstract art," he had whispered to her later that night. "But I like you." That memory felt like it belonged to a different lifetime now. But the message that lit up her screen would destroy everything she believed in. Unknown number. Check the Plaza Hotel, room 1847. Your perfect fiancé isn't sleeping alone tonight. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers trembled as she read the words again, trying to convince herself it was a cruel joke, a prank from someone jealous of her fairy tale romance. Daniel was at his bachelor party, supposedly having drinks with his groomsmen at the Copper Room downtown. He had texted her 2 hours ago. "Missing you already, my love. Can't wait to make you my wife tomorrow. Early night for me. Want to be fresh for our big day." She had responded with heart emojis and, "I love you more than anything." Now those words felt like ash in her mouth. Amelia stared at her phone, her mind racing through possibilities. Who would send such a message? Why tonight of all nights? She thought about Daniel's behavior over the past few weeks. He had been distracted, taking phone calls in another room, working late more often than usual. She had attributed it to pre-wedding stress and the pressure of his work. But what if it had been something else entirely? She should delete the message. She should trust the man she was about to marry. But something dark and insistent whispered in her mind, demanding she know the truth. Her mother had always told her that intuition was a woman's greatest gift. Right now, Amelia's intuition was screaming at her. With shaking hands, she called her best friend. "Maya, I need you. Now." The drive into darkness. 20 minutes later, Amelia found herself in the back of an Uber, still wearing her silk pajamas with a long coat thrown over them. Her best friend since childhood, Maya Rodriguez, sat beside her, having rushed over the moment Amelia called. Maya's dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she wore sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. She had clearly been ready for bed when Amelia's panicked call came through. "This is insane," Maya said, gripping Amelia's hand so tightly it almost hurt. "It's probably nothing. Some bitter ex trying to ruin your wedding day. Daniel loves you. I've seen the way he looks at you." But Amelia noticed Maya's voice lacked conviction. They had both heard the rumors over the past year. Whispers at country club dinners, knowing glances between Daniel's business associates, conversations that stopped abruptly when Amelia entered a room. She had ignored them all, convinced that their love was unshakable. "Do you remember that dinner at the Waverly?" Amelia asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. 2 months ago? Maya nodded slowly. "When those women kept staring at our table?" "They weren't looking at us," Amelia said, her stomach churning with the realization. "They were looking at Daniel. And they were whispering. I thought I was being paranoid, but—" "Amelia, even if something happened, even if Daniel made a mistake, it doesn't have to mean the end," Maya said, though her words sounded hollow even to her own ears. "People overcome infidelity. Couples work through things." But Amelia shook her head. "Not the night before our wedding, Maya. If he's with someone else right now, on what should be the most sacred night before we commit our lives to each other?" She couldn't finish the sentence. The Uber driver, sensing the tension, remained silent, his eyes focused on the road. The city lights blurred past the windows. Manhattan at night, beautiful and indifferent to the human dramas unfolding within its streets. The Plaza Hotel rose before them like a monument to luxury and secrets. Its iconic facade, lit up against the night sky, had been the backdrop for countless romantic moments in movies and real life. Now it loomed before Amelia like a courthouse where her fate would be decided. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs as they walked through the gilded lobby. The night concierge barely glanced at them. Wealthy guests coming and going at all hours was nothing unusual. A couple in evening wear laughed as they crossed to the elevators. An elderly woman walked her small dog on a jeweled leash. Life continued normally for everyone except Amelia, whose entire world was about to shatter. The elevator ride to the 18th floor felt like descending into hell rather than ascending. Amelia watched the numbers climb 10, 11, 12. Each floor bringing her closer to a truth she wasn't sure she wanted to face. Maya stood beside her, silent now, her hand still gripping Amelia's. "Whatever we find in there," Maya said as the elevator slowed. "I'm with you. Always." Amelia nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. The door that changed everything. Room 1847 stood at the end of a long, elegantly carpeted hallway. Amelia approached it as if walking toward her own execution, her legs moving automatically while her mind screamed at her to turn back, to run, to preserve the beautiful lie for just one more night. She could hear sounds from inside. Muffled voices, laughter that cut through her like glass, the clink of champagne glasses. The sounds of celebration, of intimacy, of betrayal. Maya grabbed her arm, her eyes wide with concern and fear. "Amelia, maybe we should." But Amelia was already knocking, her knuckles rapping against the door with a force that surprised even her. The sound echoed in the hallway like gunshots. The sounds inside stopped abruptly. Silence fell, heavy and damning. Then footsteps approached, slow and hesitant. Amelia held her breath. The door opened. Daniel Blackwood stood before her, wearing only dress pants, his chest bare, his hair disheveled in a way that told its own story. His face, that handsome face she had kissed goodnight 1,000 times, the face she had imagined seeing across the breakfast table for the next 50 years, went completely white. "Amelia," he breathed, the word barely audible, strangled by shock and guilt. "What are you? This isn't, I can explain." He couldn't even form a complete sentence. That told Amelia everything she needed to know. "Who is it, baby?" A woman's voice called from inside the room, dripping with satisfaction and champagne-soaked confidence. That single word, baby. The same endearment Daniel used for Amelia, now casually thrown out to identify whoever was in that bed. Amelia pushed past Daniel, her body moving on autopilot, driven by a need to know, to see, to understand the complete scope of his betrayal. Daniel tried to grab her arm, but Maya intercepted him, her small frame somehow managing to block his path. "Don't you dare touch her," Maya hissed. What Amelia saw in that hotel room would be seared into her memory forever. The scene was almost theatrical in its betrayal: champagne bottle in an ice bucket, 2 glasses on the nightstand, rose petals scattered across the floor. Rose petals, for God's sake, as if this were some romantic tryst, and clothing strewn carelessly around the room. Daniel's jacket over a chair. His shoes kicked off by the door. And on the bed. The ultimate betrayal. The woman lounging on the bed, wrapped in the hotel's silk robe with champagne in hand, wasn't a stranger. She wasn't some random temptation from Daniel's bachelor party. She wasn't even someone Amelia could hate without it destroying her. It was Victoria Hart, Amelia's older sister. The room spun. Amelia's vision blurred at the edges as her brain tried to reject what her eyes were showing her. This couldn't be real. This had to be a nightmare, some anxiety-induced hallucination brought on by wedding stress. But the details were too sharp, too specific. The smell of expensive perfume, Victoria's signature Chanel. The sound of her sister's breathing. The familiar birthmark on Victoria's left shoulder that Amelia had seen 1,000 times growing up. Victoria, beautiful, successful, perfect Victoria, sat there with a smile playing at her lips, a smile that held no shame, no regret, no sisterly love. Only cold triumph. She looked like a cat that had caught a particularly satisfying canary. "Surprise," Victoria said softly, taking a slow sip of champagne, her eyes never leaving Amelia's face. She seemed to be savoring this moment. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." Amelia couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating, so impossibly cruel that her mind simply refused to process it. This was Victoria. Victoria who had braided her hair when they were children. Victoria who had helped her get ready for prom. Victoria, who was supposed to be her maid of honor tomorrow. Victoria, who had apparently been sleeping with Amelia's fiancé. How long? The words scraped out of Amelia's throat like broken glass, each syllable cutting her from the inside. Daniel moved toward her, his hands outstretched in a gesture that might have been pleading or warding off. Amelia, please let me explain. It's not what you think. How long? Amelia screamed, her voice echoing off the hotel walls, raw with anguish and rage. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew other guests could probably hear her, but she didn't care. Let them hear. Let the whole hotel know what kind of man Daniel Blackwood was. Victoria stood up slowly, deliberately, tying the robe tighter around her waist with movements so casual they were almost obscene. She stretched like a satisfied cat, her body language screaming ownership and confidence. Does it matter? A year? 2? The whole time you've been together? She tilted her head, studying Amelia like a scientist examining an interesting specimen under a microscope. The truth is, little sister, Daniel never really loved you. You were just convenient. The sweet, naive one. The one who would make the perfect society wife while he and I, she gestured languidly between herself and Daniel, had what we really wanted. Shut up, Victoria, Daniel snapped, but there was no real force behind it. He sounded tired, caught like a child caught stealing cookies. Maya stepped forward, her voice shaking with a rage that Amelia had never heard from her gentle friend. You're her sister. What kind of monster? Oh, please, Victoria interrupted, rolling her eyes dramatically. She poured herself more champagne, as if they were having a casual conversation and not destroying someone's life. Spare me the moral outrage. Amelia's always had everything handed to her. Poor little rich girl with her trust fund and her daddy's approval. Did you really think Daniel chose you for love? She laughed, the sound sharp and cutting like breaking glass. He chose you because you were easy to control. Predictable. Boring, really. While she gestured between herself and Daniel again, we have passion. Real, raw, uncontrollable passion. The photograph that proved everything. Amelia felt something die inside her chest. Some bright and beautiful thing that had kept her heart beating with hope and trust and love. It withered and turned to ash in an instant. But underneath the devastation, something else was being born. Something cold and hard and absolutely focused. Her hand stopped shaking. Her vision cleared. Her mind, which had been spinning in circles of shock and denial, suddenly became razor-sharp. She pulled out her phone with steady hands and began taking pictures. Daniel lunged toward her, panic finally breaking through his guilty stupor, but Maya stepped between them with surprising fierceness. Don't you dare touch her, Maya snarled, and for a moment she looked capable of real violence. Amelia captured everything methodically, professionally, like she was documenting a crime scene, which in a way she was. The rumpled bed with its rose petals. The champagne in its silver bucket. Daniel's discarded clothing. Victoria's smug expression. Daniel's guilty, panicked face. Every angle, every damning detail. Evidence. Proof of the betrayal that would have remained hidden if not for that anonymous text. What are you doing? Daniel's voice cracked with panic. He tried to move around Maya, but she held firm. Amelia, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. People overcome affairs. Work this out. Amelia's laugh was hollow, devoid of any real humor. It sounded like something broken rattling in her chest. You're sleeping with my sister the night before our wedding, and you think we can work this out? She turned to Victoria, seeing her sister clearly for perhaps the first time in her life. Not as the successful fashion executive everyone admired. Not as the golden child their parents adored. Not as the big sister who was supposed to protect her. But as the selfish, cruel woman she had always been beneath the perfect exterior. All those years of competition suddenly made sense. The way Victoria had borrowed Amelia's things as children and never returned them. The way she had stolen Amelia's ideas and presented them as her own. The way she always had to be the center of attention, the most beautiful, the most successful, the most everything. This was just the ultimate theft. And Victoria looked proud of it. Why? Amelia asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why him? Why now? Why at all? Victoria's smile was cold as winter frost, cruel as a blade. Because I could. Because watching you have something I wanted was unbearable. Because you needed to learn that in this world, the strong take what they want, and the weak lose everything. She paused, swirling the champagne in her glass, her eyes glittering with malice. Consider this a wedding gift, little sister. The gift of truth. The walk of shattered dreams. Amelia turned and walked out of that hotel room with her head held high, even as her heart shattered into a million irreparable pieces. She refused to cry in front of them. Refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her completely break. Maya followed close behind, ready to catch her if she fell. They didn't speak in the elevator. Didn't speak crossing the lobby, though Amelia was aware of the night concierge watching them with curious eyes. It wasn't until they were outside, the cool night air hitting Amelia's face like a slap, that the tears finally came. "I'm so sorry," Maya whispered, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "I'm so sorry." But Amelia pushed her gently away. When she looked up, her eyes were dry again, hardened by something that hadn't been there an hour ago. Something forged in the crucible of betrayal. "Don't be sorry," Amelia said quietly, her voice steady and cold. "Be ready." Ready for what? Amelia's voice was steady, cold, and absolutely certain. "For revenge. They want to destroy me? Fine. But I'm going to destroy them first. Both of them. Completely and utterly. And they'll never see it coming." Behind them, the Plaza Hotel stood silent and indifferent, keeping its secrets like it always did. But the secret it held tonight, the betrayal that had just been exposed, would set in motion a series of events that would shake the foundations of New York's elite society. The wedding day that wasn't. Dawn broke over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that mocked Amelia's devastation. She sat in her childhood bedroom, the one she'd kept in her parents' Upper East Side penthouse, staring at the wedding dress hanging on the back of her door like a ghost, a beautiful phantom of the life she was supposed to start today. The room was exactly as she'd left it when she moved out at 22. Pale blue walls covered with her childhood artwork, a shelf full of books from her teenage years, photos of happier times tacked to a cork board. In one photo, she and Victoria stood with their arms around each other at Amelia's college graduation. Victoria was smiling, looking proud. Had it all been fake? Had Victoria resented her even then? Her phone had been buzzing nonstop since 5 a.m. Calls from the wedding planner, frantic and confused. The florist wondering about delivery times. The caterers needing final numbers. The photographer asking about the timeline. Everyone wondering where she was and why she wasn't answering. And messages from Daniel, dozens of them, alternating between apologies, excuses, and increasingly desperate pleas. Daniel. "Amelia, please answer. I can explain everything." Daniel. "It was a mistake. A terrible, unforgivable mistake. But I love you. Only you." Daniel. "Victoria means nothing to me. She seduced me. I was weak. Please, let's talk before you do anything rash." Daniel. "Think about everything we've built together. 3 years. Don't throw it away over one night." Daniel. "The guests are arriving. Please. I'm begging you. My parents are asking questions." Daniel. "I'm calling off the wedding unless you respond. I can't do this without knowing you're okay." Amelia deleted each message without reading past the first few words. There was nothing he could say that would change what she had seen, what she now knew to be true. Their entire relationship had been built on lies. Maya emerged from the bathroom carrying 2 cups of coffee, looking exhausted. She had stayed the entire night, refusing to leave Amelia alone, sleeping in fits on the floor beside Amelia's bed like they used to do at sleepovers when they were kids. "Your mom called again," Maya said softly, handing Amelia a cup. "She's at the church. She sounds really worried." "Let her worry," Amelia said, her voice flat and emotionless. She took a sip of coffee. It was bitter and perfect. "Did you do what I asked?" Maya nodded, pulling out her laptop. "I sent the photos to my journalist friend at the Manhattan Tribune." "But Amelia, are you absolutely sure about this? Once this goes public, there's no taking it back. Your family, Daniel's family. Everyone will know. The scandal will be everywhere." "Good," Amelia said coldly, her eyes fixed on the wedding dress. "Let everyone know. Let them see exactly who Daniel Blackwood and Victoria Hart really are. I want their names destroyed. I want them to walk into rooms and have people whisper, I want them to feel a fraction of what I'm feeling right now. Maya sat down beside her, worry creasing her forehead. I'm worried about you. This is so unlike you. You've always been the one who takes the high road, who forgives. The old Amelia is dead, Amelia interrupted, her voice sharp. She died last night in that hotel room. What's left is someone who understands that sometimes the high road just gets you walked over by people who have no intention of meeting you there. The unraveling begins. At St. Catherine's Cathedral, 300 guests sat in increasingly uncomfortable silence. The ceremony should have started 35 minutes ago. Daniel stood at the altar beside his best man, Marcus, looking like he might vomit at any moment. His face was pale and drawn, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept at all. His groomsmen whispered among themselves, shooting worried glances at Daniel. His father, Thomas Blackwood, sat stone-faced in the front pew beside Daniel's mother, who dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. In the front pew on the bride's side, Margaret and Robert Hart, Amelia's parents, exchanged worried glances. Margaret reached for her phone to call Amelia again when Victoria slid into the seat beside her, looking perfectly composed in her maid of honor dress, a soft lavender gown that complemented her coloring beautifully. Any word from your sister? Margaret asked, her voice tight with concern and rising panic. Victoria shook her head, her expression the perfect picture of innocent worry. If Amelia could have seen her sister's performance, she might have been impressed by the acting. Nothing. I've tried calling and texting. I'm sure she's just nervous. Wedding day jitters. You know how Amelia can be. She gets in her head about things. If only Margaret had known that the woman sitting beside her, pretending to share her concern, was the architect of her youngest daughter's devastation. Robert Hart stood abruptly, his jaw set in determination. This isn't like Amelia. I'm going to the penthouse. Something's wrong. But before he could leave his pew, the cathedral doors burst open with a bang that echoed through the sacred space. Amelia walked in, still wearing jeans and a simple black sweater, her hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, her face bare of makeup. She looked nothing like the radiant bride everyone expected to see. She looked like a woman who had been to war and come back fundamentally changed. The guests erupted in confused whispers that swelled to a low roar. 300 people turning to stare, their faces reflecting shock, confusion, concern. Daniel took a step toward her, hope and fear warring on his face, his hand outstretched. Amelia, he began, his voice cracking. Don't, she cut him off, her voice carrying clearly through the cathedral despite its softness. She walked down the aisle slowly, deliberately, her footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Every eye in the church followed her. She turned to face the assembled crowd. Everyone who mattered in New York society was there. The Vanderbilts, the Astors, business moguls and socialites, old money and new. I'm sorry to inform you all that there will be no wedding today. Or ever. Gasps echoed through the church like a wave. Margaret stood, her hand pressed to her chest, her face pale. Amelia, darling, what are you talking about? What's happened? Amelia's eyes found Victoria in the crowd. Her sister's face had gone from carefully composed concern to pure white terror, finally understanding that something was terribly, catastrophically wrong. I'm talking about betrayal, Amelia said clearly, her voice unwavering. I'm talking about discovering at 11:47 last night that the man I was about to marry has been having an affair. She paused, letting the shock ripple through the crowd, watching as people pulled out their phones, already preparing to spread this delicious scandal. With my own sister. The cathedral exploded into chaos. Margaret let out a strangled cry that sounded like a wounded animal. Robert's face turned purple with rage, his hands clenching into fists. Guests were talking all at once, some standing up to get a better view, others pulling out their phones to text and call, spreading the scandal like wildfire through their social networks. Daniel reached for Amelia desperately, but she stepped back, keeping distance between them. Please don't do this here, we can talk privately. Why not here? Amelia's voice was ice sharp enough to cut. You did this here. You stood at this altar, in front of God and everyone we know, prepared to make sacred vows to me while sleeping with Victoria. While lying to me. While planning to continue lying to me. She pulled out her phone, holding it up. I have proof. Photos from last night. The Plaza Hotel, room 1847. Would everyone like to see? No. Victoria finally found her voice, standing up in the pew so abruptly she knocked over her clutch purse. You're lying. This is insane. She's having some kind of breakdown. Am I? Amelia turned her phone screen toward the crowd, slowly walking along the aisle so those in the front rows could see. Several guests leaned forward, their faces transforming from confusion to shock to disgust as they saw the undeniable images of Daniel and Victoria together, the evidence of their betrayal captured in high-definition clarity. One woman, Mrs. Pemberton, a 70-year-old society matron who had known the Hart family for decades, stood up, looked at Victoria with profound disappointment, and walked out of the cathedral without a word. Others followed. Within minutes, a steady stream of guests was leaving, some shooting disgusted looks at Daniel and Victoria, others simply wanting to escape the uncomfortable scene. Margaret Hart collapsed back into the pew, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Robert looked between his two daughters, his face a mask of betrayal and fury the likes of which Amelia had never seen on her usually composed father. How could you? He whispered, staring at Victoria with eyes that held nothing but disappointment and rage. Your own sister? On the night before her wedding. But Victoria's shock was transforming into defiance. She had always been good at that, turning her mistakes into attacks, making herself the victim. She lifted her chin, her eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and audacity. Oh please. Don't act so scandalized, father. Amelia's always been weak. She doesn't deserve someone like Daniel. I did her a favor showing her what kind of man he really is before she made the biggest mistake of her life. The slap that cracked across Victoria's face came from their mother. Margaret Hart, always composed, always proper, always the picture of Upper East Side elegance, had struck her eldest daughter with enough force to leave a red handprint blooming on her porcelain cheek. The cathedral went absolutely silent. Even the whispers died. Get out, Margaret said, her voice shaking but firm. Get out of this church. Out of my sight. I don't want to look at you. The fall from grace. What Amelia didn't tell anyone in the cathedral was that the photos had already been sent to more than just Maya's journalist friend. She had spent the early morning hours creating a comprehensive plan. By noon, the story would be on every gossip site, every society blog, every tabloid in the city and beyond. She had made sure of it. Daniel Blackwood and Victoria Hart, caught in a hotel room together the night before his wedding. The scandalous affair between a wealthy heir and his fiancée's sister. It was the kind of story that would dominate headlines for weeks, maybe months. The kind of scandal that would be remembered for years to come whenever either of their names was mentioned. As Amelia walked out of the cathedral, leaving behind the chaos and the shouting and the complete destruction of what should have been her wedding day, she felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction. Not victory. Not even relief. Just cold, burning determination. This was only the beginning. Exposing them publicly was just the first move in a much larger game. She had spent the entire sleepless night planning, researching, making calls to people who owed her favors. Daniel and Victoria had taken everything from her. Her trust, her love, her dreams of a future, her faith in family. Now she would take everything from them. Systematically. Completely. The anonymous tip. As Amelia climbed into the car waiting outside the cathedral, Maya had arranged for a driver. Her phone buzzed one more time. Another message from an unknown number. The same number that had started this entire nightmare. Unknown number. Well done. But if you want real revenge, you need to know the whole truth. Daniel's company is built on fraud. Victoria's fashion line is funded by money laundering. I have the evidence you need. Meet me tomorrow midnight, Brooklyn Bridge Park. Come alone. Amelia stared at the message, her heart racing. Who had sent her that first text about the hotel? Who was this person who seemed to know everything about Daniel and Victoria's secrets? And how deep did this betrayal really go? And more importantly, could she trust them? Or was this another trap? Maya noticed her expression change. What is it? Is Daniel trying to reach you again? Amelia showed her the message. Maya's eyes widened as she read, then filled with concern. Amelia, this could be a trap. You can't meet some anonymous stranger at midnight in a deserted park. I have to, Amelia interrupted, her voice firm. If there's more, if Daniel and Victoria have been doing more than just betraying me personally, I need to know. I need every weapon I can get. Then I'm coming with you, Maya said firmly, crossing her arms. Non-negotiable. You're not going alone to meet some mysterious informant. This isn't a movie. This is real life, and real life is dangerous. Amelia nodded, grateful for her friend's loyalty. As the car pulled away from the cathedral, she looked back one last time through the rear window. She could see Daniel standing on the stone steps, his hands in his hair, his perfect tuxedo looking rumpled and wrong, his perfect world crumbling around him like a sandcastle hit by a wave. Victoria stood apart from everyone, isolated and alone, rejected even by their own mother, her maid of honor dress now a costume of shame. Good. Let them suffer. Let them feel a fraction of what they had put her through. Let them understand what it meant to be exposed, humiliated, destroyed in front of everyone who mattered. But this was just the beginning. Tomorrow night, she would learn the truth about their crimes. And then the real revenge would begin. Part 2: Heartbreak and Revenge. The Stranger in the Shadows. Brooklyn Bridge Park at midnight was a place of contrasts. The glittering Manhattan skyline reflected in dark water like a mirror image of dreams and reality. The romantic setting turned ominous by the late hour and empty paths. Street lamps cast pools of amber light that seemed to emphasize rather than dispel the shadows between them. Amelia stood near the agreed meeting point, wrapped in a long dark coat, her breath creating small clouds in the cool night air. Maya was hidden 50 yards away behind a cluster of trees, her phone ready to call the police if anything went wrong. They had a system. If Amelia didn't text a specific emoji within 10 minutes, Maya would call for help. The past 24 hours had been a blur of scandal and consequences that spread faster than wildfire. The photos had gone viral exactly as Amelia had planned, shared and reshared millions of times across social media. Hashtags had emerged. Hashtag Blackwood betrayal, hashtag sister scandal, hashtag wedding from hell. Think pieces had been written. Commentary had been offered. Daniel's business partners were demanding explanations and distancing themselves. Victoria's fashion line sponsors were threatening to pull their contracts. Several had already done so publicly, with scathing statements about morality and brand values. Their parents weren't speaking to Victoria. Robert Hart had already called his lawyers to discuss removing her from the family trust entirely. Margaret had taken to her bed, devastated by her eldest daughter's betrayal. But Amelia wanted more. She needed more. This had to go deeper than public humiliation. This had to be complete and total destruction. You actually came. The voice emerged from the shadows near the water, and Amelia turned to see a woman step into the lamplight. She was perhaps 30, dressed in dark clothing that suggested she didn't want to be remembered. Black jeans, a dark jacket, a baseball cap pulled low over her features. Who are you? Amelia demanded, her hand tight around the pepper spray in her pocket, her body tense and ready to run if necessary. Someone who knows what it's like to be betrayed by people you trusted, the woman said. She pulled out a USB drive, holding it up so Amelia could see it. My name is Rachel Chen. 3 years ago, I worked for Blackwood Industries in their accounting department. I discovered that Daniel's company was engaging in securities fraud, insider trading, false reporting, manipulating earnings statements, the whole playbook of financial crimes. When I tried to report it to the SEC, I was fired, discredited, and blacklisted from the entire financial industry. Amelia's heart raced, pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. You're saying Daniel's entire business is criminal? Not just ethically questionable, but actually criminal. Not just Daniel. His father, Thomas Blackwood, is the architect of it all. He built the empire on fraud and corruption. Daniel just inherited it and continued the tradition. Rachel stepped closer, holding out the USB drive like it was both a weapon and a gift. This contains evidence of everything: emails discussing illegal trades, financial records showing false reporting, recorded phone conversations where they explicitly discuss breaking the law. Enough to bring down the entire Blackwood empire and send multiple people to federal prison for decades. Why give this to me? Amelia asked, suspicious despite her desperation for revenge. Her father had taught her that when something seemed too good to be true, It usually was. Why not go to the authorities yourself? Rachel's laugh was bitter, tinged with old pain. I tried. 3 years ago I tried. The Blackwoods have half the regulatory agencies in their pocket, people they've bribed, people they have leverage over, people who owe them favors. My complaints were buried. I was labeled a disgruntled employee making up stories for attention. My career was destroyed. I couldn't get another job in finance anywhere. She paused, emotion flickering across her features. But I never stopped gathering evidence. I needed someone with credibility, someone with a motive that the public would understand and sympathize with. She gestured to Amelia. You're perfect. The jilted bride seeking justice. The victim standing up to her abusers. The media loves you right now. If you expose this, people will listen. The story will have legs. The authorities won't be able to ignore it. Amelia took the USB drive, feeling its weight in her palm. Such a small thing to contain so much destruction. What about Victoria? You mentioned money laundering in your text. Your sister is smarter than she looks, Rachel said, her voice taking on a tone of grudging admiration. Her fashion company, Haute Couture, is actually a sophisticated front for washing money from several criminal organizations. Russian oligarchs, South American cartels, even some domestic organized crime. She makes their dirty money clean through fake sales, inflated valuations, and a network of shell companies. The evidence is on that drive too. Financial records, emails, wire transfers, everything you need to prove it. The revelation hit Amelia like a physical blow. She actually staggered back a step. She had known Victoria was ambitious, ruthlessly competitive, willing to bend rules to get ahead. But criminal? Actually genuinely criminal? Running a money laundering operation for organized crime? How long? Amelia whispered. How long has she been doing this? At least 5 years, Rachel said. Possibly longer, but 5 years is what I can prove. She's been incredibly careful but not careful enough. Money always leaves a trail if you know where to look. Why are they together? Amelia asked suddenly, a new thought occurring to her. If they're both running separate criminal enterprises, why risk an affair? Why complicate things? Rachel smiled grimly, and it was a smile that spoke of long nights spent researching and understanding her enemies. Because they're planning to merge their operations. Daniel provides the financial infrastructure and the connections to move money internationally. Victoria provides the laundering mechanism and the legitimate business front. Together, they'd be nearly unstoppable. A perfectly integrated criminal enterprise hidden behind the facade of a power couple in New York society. She paused, letting that sink in. Your wedding was supposed to be the cover. The perfect society marriage while they continued their affair and their criminal partnership in secret. You were never meant to be his wife, Amelia. You were meant to be his alibi. His respectable front while he built an empire on crime with your sister. The truth that burns. Amelia felt physically ill. Her stomach churned. Her legs felt weak. She sat down on a nearby bench before she collapsed. The betrayal was so much deeper than infidelity. So much more calculated than a moment of weakness or passion. Her entire relationship with Daniel had been a lie from the beginning. Every kiss, every promise, every whispered "I love you." Every moment she thought they were building a life together. It was all calculated manipulation. She had been a pawn in a game she didn't even know she was playing. When did it start? Amelia asked, her voice barely audible. The affair with Victoria? Based on the evidence I've gathered, about 2 years ago, Rachel said, sitting down beside her. Right around the time Daniel's father started talking about him needing to settle down, get married, project stability to investors and business partners. That's when Daniel proposed to you. That's also when Victoria's business started accepting larger amounts of money from more dangerous clients. 2 years. Half of her relationship had been a complete fabrication. Every moment of the last 2 years was tainted, poisoned by lies. There's one more thing, Rachel said quietly, and something in her tone made Amelia look up. That first text you got, the one about the hotel room, that was from me. I've been following their operation for months, documenting everything, waiting for the right moment to strike. When I saw they'd gotten careless enough to meet at the plaza the night before your wedding, I knew it was time. I knew if you saw them together, You'd be angry enough to want real revenge. Angry enough to use the evidence I'd give you. You orchestrated all of this. Amelia breathed, not sure if she should be grateful or angry. You manipulated me. I gave you information, Rachel corrected firmly. You chose to act on it. You chose to go to that hotel. You chose to take photos. You chose to expose them at the cathedral. I didn't manipulate you. I gave you the truth and trusted you to do the right thing with it. Amelia looked at the USB drive in her hand. And now you're giving me a choice again. Yes, Rachel confirmed. You can take that evidence to the FBI and watch them destroy Daniel and Victoria through the legal system. It might take years. They'll hire expensive lawyers. They might even find technicalities to reduce their sentences. But eventually probably they'll go to prison. Or, Amelia prompted. Or, Rachel continued, her eyes gleaming with the promise of something darker. You can destroy them yourself publicly in a way that will hurt so much more than prison ever could. For people like Daniel and Victoria, reputation is everything. Power, status, respect, that's what they value more than freedom itself. Strip that away, and prison becomes almost merciful by comparison. Amelia looked at the USB drive in her hand, then back at Rachel. How? Rachel smiled, and it was a smile that promised retribution, that spoke of careful planning and years of waiting for this moment. That's where it gets interesting. The plan takes shape. 2 weeks later, Amelia sat in a private room at the Crown, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, surrounded by people she had carefully assembled over the past 14 days. The room was soundproof, swept for bugs. Maya had insisted on that level of paranoia, and Amelia had agreed. Maya was there, of course, sitting to Amelia's right, her laptop open and ready. Rachel sat across from them. But Amelia had recruited others, each chosen for their specific skills and their willingness to help bring down people who deserved it. Marcus Tang, a tech genius who specialized in digital warfare and cybersecurity, sat at the head of the table. He was 28, brilliant, and had his own grudge against the Blackwood family. They'd stolen his father's software company through questionable legal maneuvering 5 years ago, bankrupting his family in the process. Sophia Castellano, a public relations expert who knew how to make or break reputations with surgical precision, occupied the seat beside Marcus. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and sharper-tongued, and she'd built her career on understanding exactly how to craft and destroy public images. And James Morrison, an investigative journalist with a Pulitzer and a reputation for taking down corporate corruption, sat at the far end. He was 60, gray-haired, and had the weary eyes of someone who'd seen too much human ugliness but kept fighting anyway. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, James said, leaning forward, his hands clasped on the table. You want to expose not just the affair, but the entire criminal enterprise, the fraud, the money laundering, all of it, in a way that's so public and so devastating that they'll wish they'd been arrested quietly instead of becoming the biggest scandal of the decade. Exactly, Amelia confirmed. She had spent 2 weeks studying the evidence Rachel provided, understanding every detail of Daniel and Victoria's operations, cross-referencing dates and transactions, building a comprehensive picture of their crimes. She knew more about their illegal activities than they probably knew themselves. Daniel's hosting his annual charity gala in 3 weeks, the Blackwood Foundation benefit. It's the biggest society event of the fall season. Every important person in New York will be there. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities, old money families. Everyone. Including Victoria, Maya added, pulling up information on her laptop. She's been desperately trying to rehabilitate her image since the cathedral incident. Your mother told me Victoria's planning to announce a new charitable initiative at the gala. Trying to seem like a better person. Trying to win back public favor. Sophia nodded approvingly, a slight smile on her lips. So you want to destroy them at their own event, in front of everyone who matters. I like it. It's theatrical. It's devastating. It ensures maximum damage with no possibility of spinning the narrative. But how do we deliver the information? We can't just hand out folders of evidence. People won't engage with that. Marcus spoke up, his fingers already flying across his laptop keyboard. I can handle that part. I'll hack into their presentation system. They always have a big multimedia presentation at these galas, showing off all the good work the foundation supposedly does. When Daniel takes the stage to give his speech, we'll replace his slides with the evidence, the financial fraud, the money laundering, everything. Projected on giant screens where everyone can see. High-definition images of documents, emails, bank statements. And I'll make sure it's simultaneously uploaded to every news outlet and social media platform. By the time anyone realizes what's happening and tries to stop it, the story will be everywhere. It'll be impossible to contain. They'll try to claim it's fake, James warned, his years of experience making him cautious. Deepfakes, manipulated evidence, AI-generated documents, that's the first defense wealthy people use these days. It's not real, it's been doctored. This is a smear campaign. Which is why you'll be there, Amelia said, looking at the journalist with respect. You verify the evidence in real time, provide expert commentary, confirm that you've personally examined the documents and can attest to their authenticity. Your reputation makes it credible. You're a Pulitzer winner. You're known for your integrity. If you say it's real, people believe it. She turned to Rachel. And you'll go public with your story at the same moment. The woman they silenced 3 years ago, the whistleblower they destroyed, finally telling the truth about why you were really fired. Your testimony corroborates everything. It shows a pattern of corruption and cover-up. Rachel nodded slowly, her jaw set with determination. I'll do it. I've been waiting 3 years for this moment. 3 years of watching them prosper while I struggled. 3 years of knowing the truth and having no one believe me. Yes, I'll do it. What about security? Maya asked, practical as always. Daniel's going to have security at this event. When the presentation starts, they'll try to shut it down. They'll try to cut the power, stop the uploads. That's where I come in again, Marcus interrupted. I'll have redundant systems. Multiple upload points. I'll hack their security feeds so they can't see me working. And I'll have a dead man's switch. If anyone tries to stop me, the evidence automatically uploads everywhere. The only way to stop it is to let it happen. Sophia leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. This is good. This is very good. But we need to think about the aftermath. What happens after the gala? Where do we want this story to go? We need to control the narrative in the days and weeks that follow. I have contacts at every major publication, James said. I'll coordinate with them. We'll have follow-up stories ready to go. Interviews with other people the Blackwoods have hurt, deeper investigations into their crimes, profiles of the victims. We keep the story alive for months. And I'll handle the social media angle, Maya added. Hashtags, influencer engagement, making sure this stays trending. We make it impossible for them to hide or rebuild their reputations. Amelia looked around the table at these people who had agreed to help her, each with their own reasons for wanting to see Daniel and Victoria brought down. Thank you, she said quietly. All of you. You don't have to do this. You're risking things by being involved. They destroyed my family, Marcus said bluntly. I want revenge too. I've built my career on exposing corruption, James added. This is what I do. And this story deserves to be told. I believe in karma, Sophia said with a slight smile. And sometimes karma needs a little help. Rachel just nodded, her eyes hard with purpose. Maya reached over and squeezed Amelia's hand. We're with you. Whatever happens, we're with you. The ghost from Daniel's past. But as the plan came together over the following days, Amelia discovered something that complicated everything and added a new layer of darkness to an already dark story. Late one night, alone in her apartment, she was going through the evidence on Rachel's USB drive more carefully, organizing it, understanding every detail. She had created folders for different types of evidence. Financial fraud in one folder, money laundering in another, communications in a third. That's when she found a file buried deep in a subfolder, labeled simply Confidential Elena. The name meant nothing to Amelia. She almost skipped over it, focused on the evidence against Daniel and Victoria. But something made her pause. Some instinct told her this was important. She opened the file. What she found made her blood run cold. Elena Volkov. A woman Daniel had been engaged to 5 years before he met Amelia. According to the documents, police reports, news articles, private investigation records, Elena had died in a car accident shortly after discovering Daniel's criminal activities. She had been driving on a mountain road in upstate New York when her brakes suddenly failed. Her car had gone over a cliff. The police had ruled it an accident, mechanical failure, no evidence of foul play. But the documents Rachel had compiled suggested otherwise. Emails between Daniel and his father discussing the Elena problem and how it needed to be resolved quickly and quietly. A wire transfer of $50,000 to a mechanic named Viktor Kozlov, known for his ability to make accidents look natural. Insurance claims that had benefited the Blackwood family after Elena's death. And most damning, a recorded phone conversation between Daniel and his father from 5 years ago. Is it done? Daniel's voice, younger but recognizable. Victor confirmed the work is complete. The brake line will fail on that particular stretch of road. It'll look completely natural. Thomas Blackwood's voice, cold and businesslike. And she won't suffer? It'll be quick. She won't even know what's happening. A long pause, then Daniel's voice quieter. This is necessary. She would have destroyed everything we've built. Yes, son. This is necessary. Remember that. Sometimes we have to make hard choices to protect what matters. Amelia's hand shook as she listened to the recording. Daniel had killed his previous fiancée. Or at least, he and his father had arranged for her to be killed. Elena Volkov had discovered their crimes, threatened to expose them, and they had murdered her to protect their secrets. Had she been in danger too? If Amelia had married Daniel, if she had eventually discovered his secrets the way Elena had, would she have suffered a convenient accident as well? Would her brakes have failed on a dark road? Would she have fallen down the stairs? Drowned in the bathtub? The affair with Victoria, devastating and cruel as it was, might have actually saved Amelia's life. If she had married Daniel, if she had trusted him completely, if she had eventually stumbled across evidence of his crimes, she might be dead now. The thought made her physically sick. She barely made it to the bathroom before she vomited, her body rejecting the horror of what she had learned. When Maya found her 30 minutes later, still sitting on the bathroom floor, pale and shaking, Amelia showed her the files. "Oh my God," Maya whispered, reading through the documents with wide, horrified eyes. "Amelia, this is murder. This isn't just fraud and money laundering. This is actual murder. We need to go to the police right now." "No," Amelia said firmly, her voice stronger than she felt. "If we go to the police now, they'll arrest him quietly. Private lawyers, sealed court records, a trial that takes years. He might even get off on technicalities. That recording is probably illegally obtained. Without it, it's just circumstantial evidence." She stood up, steadying herself against the sink. "No. He needs to be exposed publicly first. Everyone needs to know what kind of monster he really is. Then we hand over the evidence to the authorities. Then they can't cover it up or make it go away quietly." Maya looked at her friend with concern and something that might have been fear. "Amelia, you're talking about going up against a murderer. What if he decides you're a threat? What if he tries to?" "That's why we have to move fast," Amelia interrupted. "The gala is in 3 weeks. We expose him then, publicly, with hundreds of witnesses. He can't hurt me if everyone knows. He can't make me disappear if the whole world is watching." She hoped that was true. She prayed it was true. But the recording of Daniel casually ordering a woman's death played in her mind on repeat, and she couldn't stop wondering if she was next on his list. The sister's scheme. Meanwhile, across the city in her penthouse apartment, Victoria Hart was plotting her own desperate plan for survival. The scandal had cost her almost everything. Her reputation was in tatters, her family had disowned her. Most of her business partners had fled. But she refused to go down alone. If she was going to fall, she would take others with her, and she would fight with everything she had left. The apartment, once immaculate and full of expensive furniture and art, was now half empty as she liquidated assets to pay lawyers and tried to keep her business afloat. Boxes were stacked against the walls. Artwork had been taken down, leaving pale rectangles on the walls like ghosts of better times. She sat on her expensive Italian leather couch, one of the few things she hadn't sold yet, and made a phone call to someone she had hoped never to contact again. Her hands trembled slightly as she dialed, knowing that this call would take her past the point of no return. "Duh." The voice that answered was cold, heavily Russian accented, and dripping with power. Dimitri, it's Victoria Hart. I need your help. Silence on the other end, long enough that Victoria wondered if he'd hung up. Then, Victoria Hart. I heard about your troubles. Very messy. Very public. Very stupid. Dimitri, please. The money laundering, if that comes out with evidence, you're implicated too. All your transactions through my company, they'll be exposed. We need to make sure those records never see daylight. This protects you as much as it protects me. And how do you propose we do that? Dmitry Volkov asked, his voice giving nothing away. My sister has the evidence, Victoria said, hating how desperate she sounded. Amelia. She's been gathering information, working with someone. I don't know who, but they have documents, financial records, everything. We need to get it back before she can use it. Before she can turn it over to the authorities. There was a long pause. When Dmitri spoke again, his voice had changed, become more thoughtful. Your sister. The one whose wedding you destroyed? The one whose fiancé you were sleeping with? Yes, Victoria admitted, shame and anger warring in her voice. You have a remarkable gift for making enemies, Victoria. It's almost impressive how thoroughly you've destroyed your own life. But Dimitri's tone was shifting, becoming more businesslike. Very well. But if I help you, you owe me. And not just money. I have something else in mind. Anything, Victoria said desperately. Whatever you need. Just help me make this go away. I want Daniel Blackwood, Dmitri said quietly, and there was something in his voice that made Victoria's skin crawl. He killed my sister. Elena. 5 years ago. I've been waiting for proof. If your sister has evidence of his crimes, she may have evidence of Elena's murder too. Get me that evidence, and I'll make sure your sister can't use anything against you. Victoria felt ice water rush through her veins. Elena Volkov. Dmitri Volkov. Of course. She had known Dimitri's last name but had never made the connection. Never put together that her primary client for money laundering was the brother of Daniel's dead fiancé. Daniel had told her about Elena once, late at night after too much wine. She found out about the business, he'd said. She was going to ruin everything. But my father took care of it. Made it look like an accident. Victoria had been horrified but too deep in her own crimes to judge. Now that chickens were coming home to roost. You want me to give you proof that Daniel murdered your sister? Victoria asked, her voice barely a whisper. Yes. And in exchange, I'll eliminate the threat your sister poses. I have resources you don't. Ways of making problems disappear. Victoria understood what he was really saying. He was offering to kill Amelia. She should have been horrified. She should have refused immediately. Amelia was her sister. Her little sister who she'd grown up with, who had looked up to her, who had loved her despite everything. But desperation makes monsters of us all. Done, Victoria said, her voice cold and hard. Give me a few days to find out where she's keeping the evidence. Then we'll make our move. Good, Dmitri said. I'll be in touch. After he hung up, Victoria sat in her expensive apartment surrounded by boxes and empty walls, and wondered when exactly she'd become the kind of person who would trade her sister's life for her own freedom. She poured herself a glass of wine with shaking hands and tried not to think about it.